Good afternoon, everyone, and good morning, depending on where you are in the country. Just want to say welcome and thank you for joining today's session, today's foundational level out-of-home office hours. I'm Scott Fiaschetti, one of your hosts, and I'm with here as always with me is Brian Shopper, though not with me, next to me in his virtual location. Just want to introduce Brian as well. Who I think's on mute as well for now, but we'll be coming back and forth during the session, doing different parts. So if you've joined these sessions before, you hopefully have a sense of what we're going to be talking about today. If not, I just want to make sure we give everybody a sense of what these foundational sessions are all about. And basically what we want to do is walk through and take a look at all the newest updates to the Geopath Insights and highlight some of the new features, specifically in two areas with this month, because there's two significant changes coming next week that we want to make sure everybody's aware of and knows how to use before they get released. And those are around the workspace module, as well as this new functionality that I know I'm excited about is this new population mapping functionality. So we're really excited about both of those updates to the Insight Suite. I want to spend a lot of time today talking about those and showing you how to use those. Again, giving you an overall sense of, for those, again, that are new to the Insight Suite, giving you a general sense of the Insight Suite, but really focusing on how to use those two specific areas of the Insight Suite because they are so new. And again, want to make sure we're aware of them when they come out next week. In tomorrow's session, in the advanced session, we're going to continue our focus on how do we move our workflows from the old tools, so the legacy tools, ADS and O-Plan, into the new tools that we have available to us. So we want to that's what we'll focus on tomorrow. And then we'll continue next month. We'll pick up with our use cases, working with members to talk about some of how they're using the tools, how they're using the data as well. So we'll pick that back up again next month. I know we've been focusing the last 2 to 3 months on how do we transition our workflow, and that's very purposeful. We want to make sure everybody is ready and able to use the tools in the state that they are right now. One thing I always want to mention too is if you do have questions, please feel free to reach out to us in the Q&A widget within the Zoom interface. We'll try to answer as many questions as we can and answer them in real time as much as we can to just to make sure they're relevant and that they're closer to the moment when you're asking the question. And then I just want to jump in and talk about the features and functionality updates. So I'll walk through, kind of show you some screenshots of what we're going to talk about, and then Brian will actually do the demo. So again, this is a bit of a sneak peek because some of the stuff isn't in the Insight Suite today at the moment, but it will be early next week. And again, for lack of repeating myself, want to make sure we are getting everybody prepped for that. So the big thing is with the evolution of the Workspace Module 2.0 is the consolidation of the workflow and hopefully an easier to use workflow across from the market planning aspects to the inventory planning aspects. So you can think about that market planning, typically like our legacy tool, our O-Plan functionality, and our ADS functionality, that's the inventory plan. So a smoother workflow there for everyone, hopefully. And so again, it starts off when you first log into the system, the ability to have common filters between the two plans and the more flexibility with adding additional widgets and actually being able to customize and move those around within your workspace. So however you like to or think about the kind of setup of a plan, you have the ability to kind of set your workflow up even in that way within the module now itself. And again, just to go back a slide to ability to add additional widgets or it's not. So if something isn't super important for you, you can hide that widget if you like. And then the ability to plan across, include multiple markets as well as national as an option as well now is a new feature that will be there, as well as now as again, being able to just set up all your goals, your markets, your inventory, etc., across one area, and then easily toggle between the market plan, inventory plan, and places. And then the ability to get inventory sets within the module itself in a couple of different ways that we'll talk about and show you. The one thing that we always get a question on that we're really excited about is now oftentimes you may be planning in multiple markets and have inventory across multiple markets, and the need to be able to look at, for example, my Boston inventory across my Boston market and Chicago inventory across the Chicago market, and just being able to do that without having to continually repeat scenarios. That is one of the key functionalities that you'll be able to do, and that will come out of this workflow and hopefully make a lot of people's lives a lot easier. The other thing that's coming are population mapping. And this is something we get asked about a lot in our Geek Out requests. So we're excited to now have this ability in the tool. And so where you're going to find that is in the Explore module. So the Explore module will change a little bit, and we can think about it now as different libraries. So there'll be 3 different libraries available. So there'll be the inventory library, which is the Explore functionality that you're used to now. And then there will be the population library, which is where you will go if you want to start mapping out different audiences across different geographies and understanding, which county is most prevalent in the US for people that have been to Starbucks or that shop at grocery stores online. You'll be able to do that now with the population library. And then the places library is essentially the places module, all now consolidated into one area. So you can toggle between the three libraries and create your point of interest plan, your geography in terms of population, as well as your inventory sets there as well. And so just to dig into a little bit on how the population mapping will work, again, similar look and feel and functionality as to other aspects of the Insight Suite, but this is where you first just decide on which, how you want to look at it. Do you want to define it by a DMA, CBSA, or county level? And then again, you can pick multiple, once you decide that, you can pick multiple DMAs to map or assign as a market, etc. And again, this is where you would pick whether or not you want it as a DMA. You have a little drop down, DMA, CBSA, or county as well. And then you can start to now add in audiences. And again, you can leverage all of the audiences that are available throughout the tool. So the 8,000 plus different audiences that we have available, and start to look at the geographies based on that. So I want to look at the top 25 counties where people have been to Starbucks in the past 30 days, or like I said earlier, like ordered groceries online in the past 30 days. Again, I'm imagining that's a lot of counties these days. And again, the information, as you start to sort and look at it, you'll see on the sidebar, that information will change, and you'll be able to sort and show the different percentages in terms of top to bottom or lowest to highest. Again, you can filter in several different ways, which again, Brian will show you in a moment, and then save those geographies. And you come back to that set of geographies and look at different audiences across it, and et cetera, and a bunch of different things that we'll talk about. And again, this is just a screenshot showing you where you'd save and where you'd go to look at your saved audience. And then again, using the layers and display options that are comparable across all of the modules within the Explore module. So across the 3 different libraries, you can start to build and layer in different maps to create a custom map for whatever you need. The other change too, and again, I know we did sessions last week on the population dashboard that came out. That will also be available within the Insight Suite as well, eventually. So there'll be another little module here you can see with the little car and the little mobile little icon there next to it. So you'll be able to access that, that information within the Insights Suite environment as well. And with that, I do want to pause and just ask Brian and see if there are any questions given what we talked about, or if we just want to jump right into the Insight Suite and start the walkthrough. Okay. Well, definitely ask questions throughout, and we'll do our best to answer. I'm going to hand over the screen to Brian, and he's going to do the walkthrough.
Hey, sorry, I was having some audio issues. I couldn't figure it out. Yeah, sorry about that.
Sorry, Brian, just there was a question that came in just as we're getting into it, and something to keep in your head as you're doing the walkthrough. Quick question about the population mapping and whether it will eventually go down to a zip code level. So the answer is yes, that is part of the plan. So for right now, it is DMA, CBSA, and county level at this point.
Okay, can you see my screen okay?
Yep.
All right, yeah, sorry about that, everybody. I had my my laptop all plugged into my microphone, and I was kind of frantically trying to figure out what was going on while Scott was trying to pass it over to me. So apologies about that. But so yeah, as Scott mentioned, there's a lot of really exciting stuff to take a look at today. We're not going to really do sort of too much basic overview of the Insight Suite. I usually in the foundational session, I'll go through and just give a lay of the land and all that. And I'll kind of do that as I go through a little bit, but today's mostly really just going to be focused on new features. So one really important thing to mention, if you're at all familiar with the Insight Suite, if you've been in here a few times and you're kind of familiar with the layout, you might notice in the top left-hand corner, we now have this floating purple button. And this is how we access those libraries that Scott was mentioning, or this is how we will access them when it's in the tool. So I just want to point this out. I'm probably going to oversay this, so it's kind of drilled into everybody's heads. But to get to the Insight Suite that you're familiar with or that you have used in the past, that's the inventory library choice here. So again, by default, the Insight Suite or the Explore module is set up as the inventory library. And to get back to the Insight Suite that you might be familiar with, just go back to the inventory library. So I'll probably say that a couple more times, but I'm going to drill that into everybody's heads so nobody asks. So the inventory library, like I said, is exactly the Insight Suite and the Explore module as you've been used to. And you can now see we have these two other ones below it, the population library and the places library. I'll talk about the population library in just a second, but the places library is actually just a migration of the places module. So here, I can just jump over there really quick. So it looks and functions exactly like the places module did when it was still on the left-hand side. So yeah, it's just now in here. And again, like I said before, to get back to the Insight Suite Explore module as you're used to, that's the inventory library. And you can kind of see it's like a little, panel here, a little billboard. So just so you know where that exists. So there's really nothing else I'm going to do with the places library today. It's pretty much the same functionality as the places module was. It just lives here now. Also, as Scott mentioned, we have the daily mobility dashboard right here. So this is something that will also be in the Insight Suite. I just wanted to click to that for a second. But yeah, let's get started with a sort of example of how to use the new population library. So again, I'm just going to go over here and just switch over. And you'll notice as this is sort of loading in, there are some familiar looking tabs up here at the top, the define population, filter selection, and layers and display options. This is almost identical to the default view. There's a little bit of a difference here, but it's largely set up how you'd expect it. This define population is exactly what you'd expect. We've got the same population selection here broken out into the sort of census level population category, then our consumer profiles, and then our Prism Premier. And as Scott mentioned, any of those 8,000 plus audiences can be mapped out. So we've got those here. And again, assign market, you can go either by DMA or national, or you can break it down further here. But so let's just, let me just show an example of what this looks like sort of in practice. So as I was going through earlier and just kind of looking around for things that might be useful, I came across one that was groceries purchased online or something like that. I forget what the actual, I gotta find it. Groceries, yeah, here we go. Items bought on the internet in the last 12 months. Groceries can, yeah, let's do that. So let's do that one. So I've got my audience selected. You can see here in this define by dropdown, I have the option to select DMA, CBSA, or county. Let's do DMA first, just so you can get a sense of what this looks like. And I'm just going to hit apply. Actually, before I do that, I haven't selected a specific market, so it's just going to go based on the whole US, but by DMA. So I'm just going to hit apply, and you'll see this is just going to fill out this whole map here. Let's take a look more closely. So you can see by DMA how these rank. You know, the lighter purple or closer to white, I suppose, is the lower that these rank. And this is right now, this is based on composition percentage high to low, but you can see we can do low to high, or we can do based on index. I don't think it really makes too much of a difference because the index is listed here too. So I think it's, for the most part, they pretty much overlap, but you can change how they're sorted there. And then you can also, just as you can when you're selecting inventory, you can select top 25, top 50, top 100. So let's see, top 25 DMAs for ordering groceries online the last 12 months. Okay, so that's an interesting spread. So this might be something that you could, you know, this would be maybe a new workflow, help you decide a new market to go into. Say there were a few you were trying to decide between, and you wanted to look at the top, I guess, top indexing for a certain audience. This would be a great place to start. This is just kind of one way you could do it. Again, this was at the DMA level, but let's take a look now. Oh, you know what? Hold on, sorry, I'm just looking at my notes. Before I do that, one of the really cool things that you can do in the new population mapping here is the ability to save geography sets, which I think Scott mentioned a little bit as we were going through. But basically, the geography sets function pretty much how the inventory sets in the Insight Suite function. So I have this top 25 here, and I can save this group of inventory, or sorry, this group of geographies for later. So I can do that just by coming down to the save icon here, save as a new geography set, and I could just call it top 25 online groceries, something like that. Apologize for the, that's all right. Apologies for the clacking on the keyboard. So I've saved this now as a geography set, but it's important to remember, once you save something as a geography set, it's no longer representative of the population that you saved it with. It's just representative of those population, or sorry, of those geographies. So in this example here, even though these are the top 25 for this audience, when I save them, it's just this group of 25 DMAs. And that's no different than in the Explore module in the inventory library too. If I have a group of posters or something and I save those, as soon as I save those as an inventory set, it no longer has any of the metrics that I saved them with. It's just that physical group of attributes. So here it's the same thing. It's just this top 25 DMAs. So that's one way you could do it. And you can save this and load this back up from your, if you go filter selection, my save geography sets, you can load these up here. But let's take a look at another way to look at this. So I'm going to leave the same audience here, but I want to look at it at a little bit of a different level. So as I was going through and trying to prepare for this, I realized that Connecticut actually has a pretty low number of counties. There's only 8 counties that make up Connecticut. So it's a really nice, easy way to sort of group together a whole state as a geography set and easily run a statewide, audience like this, just for sort of visualization purposes. So let me just get all those Connecticut counties here. Oops. Okay, and then once I add all these, let's see, apply. Okay, so now we can see we're looking again at this items bought in the last 12 months, groceries online. And now we're looking just at the state level for Connecticut. And again, I broke this down by county. And to switch between those market sizes, again, all you need to do is use this drop down right here. As soon as I switched from DMA to county, it gave me the county options down in the assigned market. So it won't give you the options unless you're in that market size designation. But yeah, so it's just interesting. You can see this county here looks like Fairfield County maybe is probably the one with the highest here on the left hand. They all kind of hover around 6 or 7%. But again, if I wanted to save the state of Connecticut as a geography that I was going to use often, I could come over here to save geography set, and then I could just save this as the state of Connecticut. And again, because I'm saving it as a geography set, once I save it, it's no longer going to be referencing back to this audience of groceries bought online, but it will be this group of 8 counties saved together. So And I think I actually did that once. Yes, Connecticut state by county. So I've already done that. So you can see that's all in here. There are some more features that are going to be coming to this. This is just kind of the first iteration of this, really. And one of the things that I probably guess people will be asking about, you can't currently export the data or export this as it is right here, but you can make maps based on this. So one of the really cool things, and I won't jump into it too much, but if I go to my layers and display options, I can actually load up saved inventory sets as map elements here and add them to my map here and make custom maps with, mapped out audiences and also inventory sets, which is really cool. And I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit more in depth in the future as that sort of evolves more. But were there any questions before I move on from the population mapping, or does it seem kind of straightforward so far? We'll give everybody a couple seconds, and type them in as you go, and we can always jump back. Yeah, so let me switch over to the workspace module now, and let's take a look at some of these new features, because this is a complete switch. Oh, sorry, wrong module. Head over to the Explore workspace. Here we go. Okay, so we've got I've got all my past projects here. I'm going to open up this project, this Atlanta 21 Plus. This is the one I want to work with today. And I'm going to make a new scenario in this project. So we'll let this load up. I think I have one past scenario in here. Okay, yeah, scenario one. So let me just make a new scenario. For those of you who are familiar with the Insights Suite at all, and you've got some use in the workspace module here, you might notice there's a bit of a change here already. Before, this button used to have add market plan, add inventory plan. Now it just says add scenario. So add scenario, and we can just call this example 2. Okay. Okay. So we'll go through this slowly, because if you're familiar with the workspace module at all, this is kind of a little foreign and new. So we'll take this, piece by piece. Basically, the overall idea for the redesign of the workspace module is to allow planning and elements to carry over between both a market plan and an inventory plan. So if we scroll down here, you can see I've got the market plan, inventory plan, and places tabs, all as I used to in the workspace module. But now we can see we've got this sort of hard line that we can refer to as the fold, or above the fold, anything up here. But now we can see we've got this division, sort of the upper part of the screen and the lower part of the screen. And whatever we change or do up in this upper part here is going to affect both our market plan and our inventory plan. And I guess the reason behind this is just so it's a lot more seamless. You can have the beginning of your plan, and you can just carry it through to the end, all in one scenario, all in one project. And so I'll go through slowly and sort of explain what all of these new features are and how to do this. But if you've been in here before and you've run a market plan, these are all pretty familiar. I think this is just about all of the same filters and parameters that were in here before. Again, you can see we can switch we can change our number of weeks. I'll put that to just 1. We could also set specific start and end dates if I clicked over to the specific check right here. But let's set my market. I want to do Atlanta for this one. So I'm going to go over to DMA. We'll do Atlanta. Okay. Okay, and we can see audience here. I've got person 0+ by default, but I'm going to add, we'll do something simple like this, just persons 21+ for this one. There you go, 21+. Maybe I'll leave person 0+ as well, so we can just see. But operators, I'm going to leave everyone. I don't want to pick any specific operator. I just want to look at all of the available inventory or existing inventory. And then here, media and placement, you can see it's got all of the different media types here by default. So it's including everything by default. So I just cleared that because I only want to look at posters in this example that I'm doing. So I'm going to just come down here to operator media name and go posters here. There are a lot of different ways that you could filter to your specific media type, but that was just how I wanted to do it for this one. Okay, so I've got all these things. There's a couple more features now before I move on to the rest of my plan that I want to call out, because if, maybe in this specific instance, I want to get more specific with my parameters and with my filters and everything like that. And if we come up to this pencil edit icon, we can actually add a few more things. So I can add a threshold filter, I can add media attributes filter, and also location filter. And if you noticed, I'll turn that off again. When I click this edit icon, I also get these little sort of markers in the bottom corner. And I can adjust this and rearrange these any way I want. So say there's like a workflow that works for you. Maybe your brain works in a certain way and you want to rearrange things to be, you know, long and tall, or, you know, long this way. You can basically rearrange this to be any configuration that you want. So it's kind of a mess now because I, you know, overdid it, but you could do this if you wanted to. So I've got, I don't really need that one here. I'm going to edit out or get rid of a couple things that I don't need. I think I can do it here. So I don't really need any of these, but I just wanted to show you how to get to those. So I've got everything set up here the way I want it. Again, it's still kind of a mess because I move things around, but now that everything here is how I want it, I can just come down here to my delivery plan goals, and like just how I would in the old market plan, I would just set my plan goals. So I'll set maybe a 40 TRP, and effective reach, I'll leave it at 1, and allocation method equal. Okay, so I'm just going to leave everything else the same. So I've got, just to recap, everything I did up here is going to apply now both to my market plan and my inventory plan. It probably makes sense for market plan, but I'll show you what it looks like for inventory plan so you can understand what that looks like. So I just hit the generate plans button. We'll scroll down a little bit. We can see it's loading up my plan here. Again, I set my TRP goal as 40. So this is basically just going to show me how many posters I'll need in Atlanta to reach 40 TRPs against whatever my audience target was. In this case, it looks like it's selecting person 0+, but I'll switch it over to 21+ once this is done. And then we'll see, you know, how many posters we'll need. And again, if anybody has any questions as we're going through, please feel free to reach out. Okay, perfect. So we've got at least our 40 TRPs. Oh, you know what? This is for person 0+. Let me switch over to 21+. Okay, so still over our 40 TRPs. Let's take a look. Okay, so this is telling me I would need about 39 posters in this market to reach 40 TRPs against persons 21+. If I open up this operators drop down here, I can see who has existing inventory of this type in this market. And really from here, this is all I kind of need for my market plan. You know, I've filled in everything I need. I know I need about, we'll say about 40 posters for this. Yeah, and from there, we can just go over to the inventory plan and actually start to use some real inventory. So you can see actually this is carrying over. I'm going to get rid of my person 0+ because I don't really need that anymore. I just want 21+. So we'll hit 20+, and okay, just 20+. So we've got our market plan still, switch over to the inventory plan, and you can see it carried over our audience from above, it carried over our market from above. This little checkbox, filter inventories within the selected market. So basically using this check and the combination of all the things I set up here, I can click this button right here, add inventory from filters, and I can have the system add to my inventory plan all of the existing posters in the system that fit my parameters. So essentially, I can go into the market plan, figure out how many units I'll need for something, and then I don't even need to go to the Explore module if I don't need to. I can just go right over to the inventory plan, and then I can just hit this Add Inventory from Filters button, and it will load up with metrics and everything, every single piece of inventory in the system that meets these criteria. But then from there, of course, you can filter even further, and you can remove things and get really specific with it. I'll just give it a second to load up, but I think I might have to open this. And as this is loading, you'll see, I think this might be a lot because this is the whole market of Atlanta and all the posters still right now. So let's see, how many is it? Yeah, about 3,000 spots. But you can see it's loaded up now, every existing piece of poster inventory in this market for me here. And really from here, like if I wanted to, I could just export this as is and then, you know, do my selections in Excel or something like that, or I could do my selections right here. But this is kind of a big number. I want to net this down for myself a little bit more. So let me come back up here and apply some other filters. Let's see.
Brian, just as you're starting to do that, actually, can you scroll down just a little bit? I apologize.
Yeah, of course.
So that I want to talk a little bit about that filter inventories within the selected market.
Yes.
So that's an important thing to know for right now, that you would want to keep that clicked on if you have a set of inventory that is mixed with different locations. So maybe to go back to the example I was using early on, if you have some in Boston, some in Chicago, some in El Paso, wherever it is, by clicking that on and choosing those three markets, it will automatically put the inventory that goes along with that market in the right buckets. Otherwise, it'll look around and say, any unit that draws an impression from any one of those markets will have it all. So if I have a unit that's in Chicago and it's drawing at least one impression from something in Boston, it'll have that in two different places. So by clicking that filter, you're able to say, I just want to look at the Chicago market. I want to look at my Chicago inventory. Boston. I know that's a frequent use case that we've been asked about. So I just want to make sure people are aware that you want to make sure to keep that clicked on to do that scenario, that workflow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point. I'm glad you made that distinction. Yeah, so let me go back up here, and I wanted to add a media attribute because 3,000 posters is a little bit more than I wanted to work with right now. So let me pick orientation. Let's say, I don't know, let's say I only wanted north-facing posters, just as an example. I could do that. Let me see, I think I need to hit, I think there's a recalculate button. I'll just hit add inventory again. But, oh, there it is, replace existing. So now that I've added that filter, I should only be seeing the posters in this market that are north-facing. So I just did that just so it was a little bit of a more manageable number to work with. So that's just one of the ways that we can, well, let me finish this. I was going to say there are a few other things about the inventory adding that I wanted to talk about, but you can see we've got about 700 spots now that I've added that directional filter, which is good. That'll make this a lot more manageable. But if you remember, I only needed about 40 spots to get that TRP goal. I'm curious, is there a TRP? No. But a couple things about this layout before I move on. You can customize your columns here of this report and add anything in. There's tons of different metrics in here that we didn't, that aren't in here by default. So you can add any or all of these if you wanted. And just a quick reminder, if it is not in your view here, if you haven't added it as one of your columns, it won't export when you export it. But just so you know, if you want to customize your columns, you can do that.
Sorry, Brian.
I think I know where you're going with this, actually.
All I was going to say is one good practice is frequency. I don't believe is a standard one that is.
Oh yeah, that's a good call.
You're going to want to probably always set as
near the bottom somewhere.
So that's one thing. And then a question did come along too about as you're doing your walkthrough, if you could show where you can grab the Excel template or the CSV template if you wanted to use our template to upload inventory.
Definitely.
Okay. Great.
Yeah. So if you remember, I set up all my filters up here and everything, and then I hit this add inventory from filters button. That's just one of the ways to add your inventory to an inventory plan. The other way, you don't have to use the filters at all. You can use this add inventory button, and that actually gives you 3 different ways that you can add inventory as well. So the first one here that it opens up to is this load file. And this basically gives you the option to upload a CSV right from your own computer. You don't have to do anything from within the system. And you can just upload a CSV that has, it needs to have a spot ID in it as one of the columns. And I believe it needs to have a campaign start and an end date, although I don't think that that's necessarily going to stay as required. Yeah. But basically, you can load in your file by browsing here, and then on the next screen after this, it'll have you match your headers to what it needs as required fields, and then it'll upload from there. And if you see this download a CSV template right here, this will give you a CSV, an empty CSV that has, it's basically just a spot ID column and then a start date and an end date column. So that's really all you need. That's all that's in the template anyway. But if you want it, it's right here. So that's another way that you can actually add inventory to your inventory plan. But you can, of course, load up saved inventory sets, which is kind of the main way that I had been showing how to use this in the past. So I can see I've got all my past inventory sets in here, and I can add those. I can actually add multiple. Or I could also, if I have spot IDs, just sort of in an email or in an Excel sheet or something, I can just paste those right in here, either as Geopath spot IDs or operator spot IDs. So there's a lot of different ways that you can actually add inventory to your plan here and run metrics against it. So a couple more things about the redesign here. I just want to make mention, it's always a good practice to hit save scenario frequently, frequently, just because, especially now that everything takes place sort of above the fold here and is working for both the market plan and in the inventory plan, it's just important to make sure you're saving and sort of every step of the way, make sure you're taking care of that. And finally, I mentioned earlier, if you want something in your report, when you export it, you have to make sure it's in this customized columns here. So if you're happy with your report as it is, you can just come up here to this export scenario button and then export as CSV, and you'll just get a download of your inventory plan. And actually, you know what? I believe now that the inventory plan and the market plan and the places too are all part of this sort of singular workflow here, I believe it actually downloads 3 things for you. I think it downloads, or if there's something in places, it'll download 3 things for you. But I believe it downloads a CSV with your market plan in it, and then a separate one with your inventory plan in it, and I think a third one with places if you have places loaded in. But yeah, so if you want to export, just go to the export scenario button and then hit export as CSV. Do we have any other questions? I think that was just about it for this scenario. Well, and if not right now, you can definitely grab them as they come in too.
Sorry, I was on mute. And there's an interesting question that did come in, and I am curious to hear about some of the questions everyone has, or at least maybe in the future, as how we can see you will be using or want to use the population mapping functionality. So there's an interesting question that came in about, can I create that heat map and then overlay my saved inventory onto it, or use that to help me identify the inventory that's best for reaching that audience? And I'm not sure if I'm exactly, I may be extrapolating out on the question, but it just got me thinking on how can we solve that problem, And one thought I had, and again, maybe if you want to hop over to the population mapping, if there are.
Yeah, sure.
I don't see any other questions coming in right now on the workspace. We can always hop back to that. But like, one thought I had to do this is, and again, feel free to comment back to us on this as I'm saying this, but you can look at your audience, right, and pick your top geographies and then identify, okay, great, this is the geography I want to be in, and I know it's great for reaching maybe to go back to your example, Brian, those that have ordered groceries online in the past 12 months. Great. So now let me go into this. I have that saved, and I know this particular county or DMA is prevalent for that. We can look at inventory with the same audience and filter down for the inventory most efficient for reaching that audience within that DMA or CBSA or county, and then kind of overlay those together potentially.
Right. So I think, I'm
thinking of right now on the spot, because I'm really excited that this functionality is here, and I'm really, again, curious to hear some of the questions that we'll be getting on this and working with everybody to come up with workflows.
Yeah, and I think that was I saw that question as well. I think that's a really interesting idea. I guess basically just, if we were looking at this, sort of visualizing it out now, I guess the question was asking, like, if we've done something like this and we see that this is the highest indexing county, can we just have it, basically, how do we bridge this between inventory and population mapping? That is a great question. I think there's a lot to be there's a lot that can happen from this point onward. There's a lot of options for that.
And a question just came in through the chat
Oh
about
yeah, I saw that here.
how
I'll
do
hop
you
over it.
filter inventory, and that's something definitely we can show you.
Mhm.
And you can do this in the workspace module or also in the explore module. The same types of options are available. Just to caveat that, as Brian
Mhm.
was.
Yeah. So the question specifically, how to choose specific types of inventory. In this media and placement filter right here, I'll open up this add media type button. Here, let's catch up with me. Okay, so there are a lot of different filters that you can use to actually filter out your inventory. Each of these are just different different levels of the same kind of filter, basically. Long way to say, there are a lot of different ways that you can use these filters to sort of get to the same result. It's really all about workflow or what works best for your own sort of preferences. But you can see as I hover over these are each different. So like media class is the distinction between roadside or place-based and fleet. But then we have things like, media type is based on size of the frame. So we can go based on that. But I've been using recently the operator media name. If you're looking for something and there's sort of a specific name that you're not finding, operator media name is probably a good place to come check. So here you can see just a list of sort of operators supplied media names that we've sort of standardized into the system here. And this is where I picked posters in the example earlier. But if I wanted to add like transit shelters and bulletins and benches, I could add that, and I could just say add individually, add as a group. But here, let me add those individually. And so you can see now this is a perfect example. Let me hit the edit icon and I can drag this bigger, and now we can see. But yeah, so that's just one way that you can add media types. And actually here, let me open this back up.
And, just as you're doing that, Brian, too,
Yeah.
this is an area too, we've gotten some feedback that might need a little bit more clarity to help our members use the particular filters a little bit better. So this is an area where we're going to be working on too, and hopefully providing a little bit more, maybe more options and more clarity, especially like I believe within the media type category. So, so it's a lot more clear for our members.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just had one little point I wanted to make. So this add media type here, this is basically, if I were to, memorize that in your head for a sec, if I switch over to the explore module really quick, it's basically the exact same layout as this filter inventory tab here within the, it's basically just a representation of one of the subcategories in here. It was this media and placement as a whole, just kind of moved into the other modules. So once this expands, you should see. Yeah, so here's basically all those same types. And then there's some additional ones for place-based media. But yeah, that inventory filtering selection module in the workspace there, that was modeled after this and is pretty much identical, just minus these.
And you can use these as more cascading. I know, Brad, you mentioned like you don't have to, but you can.
Oh yeah, you can go like roadside and then
roadside, and then they do auto filter
freestanding
as you go, as you pick. You would have to, you would have to, I believe, hit kind of apply after each time,
right.
So you have an auto filter as you go through that, but you can use it that way as well.
Definitely. Scott, do you want me to hand it back to you for and I'll keep an eye on questions if we have any more come in?
Sure. Yep. Oh, I think one, let's see. Yeah, I think we're good with questions.
Okay.
If you want to switch it over, but if you don't mind checking that question that just
yeah, sure.
So I'm just going to jump back to the presentation deck. Just a couple quick things as we're summing up here. And again, please feel free to continue to ask questions. We can always jump back into the Insight Suite as needed. So with this, I know I got a question or two whether or not the session will be available somewhere after we're done. And yes, this session and all of our sessions are always available on our website. So if you go to the Geek Out tab and scroll down to the Out of Home Office Hours, you can see any of our most recent sessions, but then you can also click where it says click here, and that'll take you to our YouTube channel. And there's a playlist of all of our out-of-home office hours as well as other content. One thing that you're seeing here of note is that the two most recent ones, the COVID-19 session 2 and session 1, those are two sessions that we did. My weeks are getting all mixed up. So April 17th, yes. So it wasn't last week, I believe it was the week before when we actually did the sessions. I know earlier in the webinar today, I said it was last week, so it was actually 2 weeks ago. When we launched the dashboard, we did some sessions on how to use it, how to interpret the data. So if you missed those and have questions, one, you can always reach out to us on Geek Out at geopath.org, or you can also even watch those sessions there. Do want to talk about our session for tomorrow, and just let everybody know it's tomorrow, May 1st, from 12 to 1 Eastern time. And so we're going to take a lot of what we talked about today and actually convert that into a workflow too. And I know Brian was starting to hint at that and talk about that. But again, we want to make sure, again, while we know the vast majority of our members are probably accessing the data through the Insight Suite. So we wanted to take some time and make sure people really have a sense of how do I convert my workflow from the legacy tools into the new tools as well. And then, like I said, next month, we'll do our foundational and advanced levels again, getting back onto that schedule of the last Thursday and Friday of every month, trying to get back to that schedule. I know we changed it for a little bit to try to tie into some of the releases, but for now, we're going to go back to the Thursday and Friday cadence. I think that's easier for everybody to keep it in their minds that I always know the Geopath training sessions are the last Thursday and Friday of every month. And we'll try to get back to the use cases again for the advanced sessions. So with our foundational session will be around the changes to the Insight Suite. The advanced level will be about how do you use that data to solve problems for clients, or the questions you're getting from clients and advertisers on how to use the data to help solve those questions. And then also, if you haven't had a chance yet, we've sent a couple newsletters out, and we'll continue to be adding content to this and announcing the new content. But we obviously this week would have been our conference, and we would have many of us would have hopefully been in Phoenix, attending sessions and attending the conference. And unfortunately, we, for obvious reasons, had to cancel the conference, but we still wanted to have that content available to our members. So we worked with a lot of the people who were set to give presentations and actually converted those into a virtual conference. So you can go to the go2020outoFhome.com and actually find a bunch of the content. And we are going to be, like I said, updating that over the next week as well, adding more sessions and announcing them as they become available to everyone. So Brian, just checking in, any other questions or anything like that anybody had?
No, nothing that I saw.
Great. So again, if you do have questions afterwards, as always, or if you need anything, again, please reach out to us at geekout@geopath.org. We can, that's the best place to ask any additional questions. We can reset your password. We can, help pull data that you need or do anything like that. So again, we're always available there at geekout@geopath.org. So hopefully we'll see many of you back tomorrow, and please let other members of the company know about the sessions. And again, just want to say thank you to Brian for doing the walkthrough, and thank you to everyone for joining today.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
Yep.
All right, take care, everyone.
Just want to say thanks and stay safe and stay healthy.